Welcome back to the Driveway Beers podcast with Mike and Alex. As always, we appreciate you listening. Please rate us on all the podcast platforms. Like, subscribe, comment, share wherever else you're listening, and enjoy the show. All right, welcome back to another show. We appreciate you coming back as always. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Want to thank Adam Chubbuck with Douglas Realty in Pasadena, Maryland. That's Team Alpha Charlie with Douglas Realty. TACMD.com. That's TACMD.com. TACMD.com. Go talk to Adam. In this real estate market, it doesn't look like the Fed's lowering interest rates because of the uncertainty in the economy. Inflation's holding steady, so it looks like now might be a good time to be able to lock in an interest rate. And go talk to Adam to see if now is the right time to buy for you. As far as selling goes, it doesn't look like the market has slowed down as far as buyers are concerned, so this might be the best time to sell your home. The only way to find out is to call Adam. So go to TACMD.com, TACMD.com, and talk with Adam for free. It's a free consultation. The best thing about it is that he's going to tell you exactly what you should do, not what he wants you to do. It's nice to get some honest advice from a trusted professional, even if it means that he isn't going to make any money off of the interaction. So go to TACMD.com, that's TACMD.com, and talk to Adam today. Speaking of the economy, we're going to talk about a few things Trump.
Boo or yay, depending on who you are.
Yeah, I mean, if people still have the TDS going on, then it's probably a boo.
I think it's alive and well.
It really, it is, but it isn't. I think, so you got to remember, the cable news networks and news networks, they make their money off of outrage, right? So even if something good happens, the headline's going to be framed in a negative way.
Sure.
Because they know 90% of the people aren't going to click on the article to read. So you could have glowing stuff written in that article, but because you put a good thing in a negative light, they're just going to think it's a negative thing. One good example is these. So Trump essentially was able to get Qatar, the country of Qatar, to gift the United States a 747 that they were no longer using. And, of course, the media is touting it as Trump is accepting a personal gift from a foreign country.
Right. Of
a 747, a $400 million plane is going to be gifted directly to Donald Trump, not President Trump.
Not the United States Air Force.
Correct, not the United States Air Force. And so the plane is being donated to the United States Air Force, or the United States as a country, right? I'm trying to, do you know another time in history when another country has gifted the United States a fairly sizable gift?
The Statue of Liberty?
You don't say. It wasn't a personal gift to Washington.
Right.
Or whoever was president at the time.
Yeah, I don't
It wasn't, like, they didn't get to put it in their backyard. Right? When they, it's done in the New York Harbor.
It's
so
not a lawn ornament.
No, we're not going to put it on John Adams' front yard. Because we're 5 years is up, so now it goes to John Adams' house. It doesn't work like that. So here's the whole story behind why this was kind of needed, or why Qatar offered it up. So the two 747s that are in use as Air Force One are over 40 years old.
Yeah, so and just so you know, it's a VC-25.
Okay.
So people say it's Air Force One. Air Force One is any aircraft upon which the president's flying.
Correct. But they're both 747s.
Right.
Okay. So back, I believe it was in 2017, Trump signed an order to have two new replacements made by Boeing. And they were supposed to be delivered in 2024. Well, Boeing being Boeing, screwed the pooch. Essentially, the first plane now isn't estimated to be delivered until 2027. The second plane is estimated to be delivered in 2028. But the two current 747s are a massive, massive maintenance cost right now, because, and part of it is because Boeing stopped making the 747. Mm-hmm. I want to say it was 2018 or 19.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. Maybe 2020.
Yeah, the last one they built. So the current VC-25 is, I believe, a 747-400. And the newest model is the 800.
The Dash 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, now, it doesn't mean that Boeing's not making 747s. They stopped taking orders for 747s. But they've stopped making the commercial, the passenger version.
Yeah, they're freighters.
The only ones they're finishing now are the freighters. So this is essentially one of the last 747s that will be used for any kind of people to be inside. And of course, Boeing just takes forever. And we can get into the whole plane purchasing timeline, because not just them, it's Airbus and Embraer and some other ones. But essentially, you never get a plane on time. All right, so rather than continuing to maintain those 40-year-old 747s, Qatar had a 747 decked out for the royal family, which they are no longer using. It was parked.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, hey, look, what if we gift this to the United States? You use it for 2-3 years that you need to. And then when it's done, it'll be donated to Trump's presidential library, which is a government run. It's a government owned.
Mm-hmm.
Like the presidential libraries are paid for by the government. They're run by the government. They're government entities. So it would be retired to a government entity. It's not like he's going to take it home to Mar-a-Lago and going to keep using it.
Because he already has a 757.
Correct. And that's the plane he's going to keep using is the 757. He's already upgraded the 757. The last time he was president, I believe he had the engines redone. He had the interior redone. Like, he basically had it stripped and redone. So he's not giving that plane up anytime soon. That's his personalized plane. Mm-hmm. That's been now upgraded to newer standards, and they don't make a 757 anymore, so it's not like you can replace that. But the headlines were basically saying, oh my God, I can't believe Trump just accepted a $400 million gift.
Yeah.
Like it was his own, it's going to go into his personal hangar.
Right. Like he's going to be flying it around on his own.
And then another argument was, well, it's going to take him until 2027 to make it suitable for presidential use. I don't think so. The plane is the plane. I mean, I don't know. They'll probably have to put some communications on it, some comm stuff on it. I don't think they're redoing the interior design. I think the idea was to keep it the way it was and just add the tech. Yeah,
so I know that, like, the current iteration, like, there's all kinds of comm stuff on there. There's, security stuff on there. There's the rear of the aircraft is set up like a regular passenger layout for the press corps when they follow the president around different places. There's there's a bedroom, there's conference rooms, there's all kinds of. I'm not sure about. They'll probably have to retrofit some sort of air-to-air refueling capability on it because the current 25s both have that. They can refuel air-to-air. I mean, that plane, they can stay airborne indefinitely. Like, essentially, as long as the engines can keep running, they can stay in the air. So I know they're probably going to have to do some things like that if they decide to go that route with it. But who knows? Maybe the Qatari royal family already did that.
It's very possible. But the other part is even if you can just retire one of them, one of the 747s. So let's say you keep one of them that has the air refueling capability, and then if the shit hits the fan, we'll use that one.
Yeah.
But we'll use this other one that's more than capable, and we'll only just put like the comms and stuff on it. I think within 6 months, I'm pretty sure that new plane is going to be repainted and retrofitted, or not, and fitted out with all the stuff.
Yeah.
And we got it for free. It's not like you don't have to lease it.
Yeah.
You don't have to build it from scratch. I mean, we're already building 2 from scratch. I mean, I don't really see a downside to this.
No, it seems it's almost like you need a car, and I have 3 cars and 2 drivers. Like, just take my other car.
Right. So you don't have to rent a car for a week, which we've done.
Yeah.
But yeah, but of course, the one side wants to be outraged. Like, and this is one thing that we're kind of noticing is the left hasn't reinvented themselves in any which way after the election loss. So their response is to just be outraged over every single decision.
Yeah.
And the problem with this, though, and I'm going to use the tariffs as an example. So, as most people know, Trump put reciprocal tariffs on a lot of countries, which are actually less than the tariffs that were on other countries. And then there was the whole back and forth with China because China decided to play a little game of chicken. And everyone's like, oh, see, he's going to put us into a recession and this. And of course, it's a consumer tax. And like, well, slow down. The idea was to put the tariffs in place because our trade imbalance has grown so much since 2020. Like I'm sorry, 2002. Mm-hmm. Up until about 2002, the trade imbalance across the board, so that means every country, we were about at 0. And then after 2002, the trade balance really went in a negative way for us. And as a country, if you're not producing anything, you can't grow.
Yeah.
Well, because these other countries had started undercutting, particularly China, they had undercut our economy with currency manipulation and also IP theft. And I'll get to that in a minute. But essentially, because they started producing things much cheaper, so they would steal the tech and then produce it cheaper, they would essentially run our companies out of business. Mm-hmm. But our companies couldn't sell in those countries without those partnerships. So essentially, it's like, all right, so our auto industry, I'll use that as an example. If one of our automakers like GM wants to produce a Buick in China, which was a very popular car, they had a partner with a Chinese car manufacturing company, and they were forced to share blueprints, data, technology, everything. That was the cost of doing business in China. Well, the problem with that is within 5 years, once the short-term agreement was done, the Chinese company would have stolen all of the IP, all of the blueprints, everything, and then would just produce the car themselves and force you out if you didn't play ball. A good example of that is Westinghouse. So Westinghouse in the United States was a pioneer in nuclear power plants. Mm-hmm. They entered into an agreement with the Chinese company, which is the Chinese government. Within 5 years, China stole all of the tech, all of the blueprints, all of the know-how, and cut off the contract from Westinghouse. So essentially, they got maybe a 5-year benefit, produced maybe 3 to 4 nuclear plants. Mm. And then they got cut out, and this Chinese company used all of their tech and built the nuclear power plants in China by themselves. And oh, by the way, they started taking that tech and getting contracts in other countries. That's how China plays dirty pool.
Yeah, and Westinghouse was like a rival to GE.
Yes,
because GE makes appliances. Westinghouse did the same thing. They make TVs. I remember seeing it was an ad on Facebook for the old Levitt houses in Bowie when they were building them, and it said Westinghouse air conditioning system and appliances. Like, they were a GE rival, and like, I have a Westinghouse TV, right? But it's just a TV that has the Westinghouse name on it.
Yeah, now it's made in China.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where that was a great company that did a lot of things, and now they're gone. I don't know if like GE makes jet engines. I'm not sure if I want to say Westinghouse may have too, or components, but they did a lot of big, heavy industrial type stuff. Now they're nothing.
Right. Well, I mean, I think GE ended up buying them out for the name. And now I think you're right. I don't think does the name get put on anything anymore? Maybe. I mean,
I have a TV. It's like a maybe a 42-inch. It's the one that hangs in my kitchen dining room area. It's, the speaker's so terrible you need to have a sound bar on it. It was one of those things where, you get a 42-inch TV for like $195, type of deal.
Well, in another industry where it really hurt us was the solar panel industry. So a lot of people don't realize that solar panel technology was prevalent in the United States. The United States was probably in position to be the leading producer of photovoltaic solar panels. But the same thing that happened to Westinghouse happened to one of the companies from America, which is why now China basically can produce these things at a much lower cost. Mm-hmm. They undercut the company that originated it and forced that company out of business. It's the same blueprint.
Yeah.
And that's if they're not doing just pure IP theft without a partnership. Like they'll take a product and they'll reverse engineer it. Mm-hmm. And then they'll just produce it on their own.
Well, and this is nothing new for them. So I think it's the Shenyang J-21 is just a MiG-21 that they took from the Russians. And
well, there's the new one. I don't know the name of the fighter jet, but if you put it next to an F-35, mm-hmm. it looks really close. Yeah. Now, whether they just skinned it different, I don't know. I don't know how similar the internals mm-hmm. are. Probably not that internal or not that similar. I don't know. But the problem with that is, and this is why every other country or almost every other country in the world recognizes IP, which is intellectual property rights, which is so like you don't see like Airbus copying a Boeing plane, right. And there's even questions now. So there's a plane company called Comac, mm-hmm. Which is essentially Chinese government plane manufacturer or whatever. I don't know the actual. It's like there's some weird name, but Comac stands for something.
Yeah.
And they essentially have a plane that looks like the Boeing 737.
Yeah.
And it's like a mix of a design between the 737 and the A320.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yep. Yeah. When you look at it, it's like, that looks awfully familiar.
Right. Yeah, and what they're doing it, so yes, Chinese airlines are still trying to buy Boeing jets, but at the same time while they're doing that, they've got what they call the Comac C919. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to ramp up production. Now, the 919 is not flight approved for Europe or America. So they can't sell it here, but they can sell it to Chinese airlines, mm-hmm. and the Chinese airline industry is booming right now.
Yeah,
and I think part of that, and we talked about this on a different episode. Part of that is Boeing's own fault and Airbus's own fault because their backlogs are like 10 years out. Well, if you need an airplane tomorrow, and China basically just said, "Screw it, we're going to learn how to do this shit ourselves," because they were able to import the engines. Like there wasn't like some embargo on sending jet engines there. Right. So like Rolls-Royce was sending engines there, GE sends engines there, and they put them on their planes. Mm-hmm.
And that's probably how it would go anyway.
Right.
So like if you buy a Boeing 777, you can get GE 90s or Rolls-Royce. Those are the two engine options for mm-hmm. that aircraft. So it depends. Like a lot of like 777s that are flying with British Airways, a lot like they'll be flying with Rolls-Royce engines, and then ones with United will have GE 90s. So but the airplane operates the same, everything's the same with it. It's just two engine options.
But the problem that they might run into is that GE, Rolls-Royce, if they're selling these engines to Comac,
they'll just reverse engineer them.
Yeah, and then what happens if they produce their own engines, and then what happens if they sell them to Boeing?
Yeah.
At a much lesser cost than a GE or Rolls-Royce engine. Mm-hmm. Like, does it then put them out of the turbine business?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know.
But I think some of that's like, people are okay with buying a cheap Chinese-made Temu version of maybe a laptop or a boom microphone or something. But I think when you get to like, oh, this is a jet engine that's going to be on the airplane I'm flying on, like they might have a bit of a customer revolt.
Maybe.
just because of the average customer couldn't tell you whether they're getting on an Airbus or a Cessna. So, they just get on, sit down, shut up, fly off.
Yeah.
But the first one that crashes, they figure out, that had Chinese Comac engines on it, and now there's a problem. The backlash will be pretty severe.
But I mean, is that any worse than a Boeing door falling off?
Yeah, well,
it's not like I said, Boeing's not doing themselves any favors here.
No, they're not. And a lot of people like to blame that on, it's DEI, blah, 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 blah. A lot of that problem came from the merger of the Boeing and McDonnell Douglas culture when those two companies merged. And the McDonnell Douglas way of doing things was it was all bottom line. And the Boeing way of doing things was, no, let's make the best airplane we can. And a lot of that McDonnell Douglas culture seeped into other areas. And, now the FAA lets these manufacturers certify so no FAA inspector goes and says, yeah, this airplane's good. Right. They say, oh, you make enough of them, we trust you.
Yeah. So, part of that McDonnell Douglas thing was they had severe layoffs at Boeing. And so you had one person trying to do three persons' work. And of course, steps get missed, right? Well, that means like a bolt doesn't get, fully torqued down. Yeah. And then your door falls off.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe you should have hired more people rather than cutting 3-person salary, There's another portion of this that people also don't understand about tariffs. So let's say there is a 10% tariff from Chinese-made goods. Nike makes their shoes, and I think they make them in Vietnam, but we're going to say they make them in China. People think that they're going to have to pay the 10% tariff on the $100 retail price of the shoe. That's not how tariffs work. Nike pays the tariff on the purchase price of the good from China.
And they didn't spend $100 on it.
No, they probably paid. They probably paid $10 for the shoe. And if you think I'm kidding, I'm not. $10 is probably what Nike is paying for the finished shoe before it gets imported.
Yeah.
Okay. So rather than paying $10, now there's a 10% tariff. So now Nike is paying $11 for that shoe. Even if Nike passes that tariff onto you, you're going to, instead of paying $100 for the shoe, you're going to pay $101 for the shoe. It's not going to make that big of a difference. And then on top of it, because only certain products are going to have that tariff imposed on them, it's not inflationary across the board. It doesn't impact all products.
Right.
So it's not going to be inflationary. People are just either going to decide to buy products from other countries. Like, for example, like right now, Apple's talking about making their iPhones in India. Mm-hmm. Well, because India is going to have a lower tariff rate than China.
Yeah.
So essentially,
why do they make them here? Oh, wait. Because then their profit margins won't be as huge.
Correct.
And that's one of the things that always gets me is like, you know how much an iPhone would cost if it was made here? Exactly what it costs now. Because the market will only bear so much. And their profits just won't be as massive.
Well, and that's the other thing. It's like, okay, let's use the Nike example. You don't think Nike can eat that $1?
Right.
Of course they are, but they're going to fuck you instead.
Yeah.
And they're going to blame it on the tariffs. Mm-hmm. And you're going to blame Trump.
Yeah, or they'll sell it for $110 because they know that most people think it's 10% above the cost, and then they're going to make $9 additional in profit.
Correct.
So they're going to double essentially, they're going from $10 to $9 to now $19. Like, so. I mean,
let's put it, if a company can profit off of your stupidity.
Oh, they will.
They will.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, because on the next earnings call, that's a 1% or 10% or 9% increase in profits for them?
Mm-hmm.
Because they told you a lie.
Yeah.
You're not going to blame them.
Right.
You're going to blame Trump.
Yeah.
He's the one that imposed the 10% tariff.
The South Party, blame Canada.
Correct, yeah. So, I mean, people really don't understand how tariffs work.
Yeah.
Now, although I'm pretty sure that if that kind of shit happens, Trump will call them out.
Mm-hmm.
He is not shy about saying, oh, no.
Yeah.
Because here's another thing. Corporations don't give a fuck about you.
No.
Now, Either do politicians. But corporations really don't give a fuck about you. Because, and we've talked about this before, every company's first rule that they're obligated to meet is to maximize shareholder wealth. It is written to every single bylaw of every corporation.
Yeah, it was actually the Dodge brothers used to work for Henry Ford. And Henry Ford wanted to, it was either keep the price of the Model T the same or lower it. And the Dodge brothers, who were part of Ford at the time, said, no, we can make more money. And Ford didn't want to do it. So they sued, and I think it may have made it to the Supreme Court. It's essentially where the CEO's job is to maximize shareholder profits. So that came from them, and then they make shitty cars on top of it.
Right.
So, and there's two reasons not to buy a Dodge.
Yeah. And so my brain's going in two different directions right now. Do we talk about cars and the prices of them? Because in my opinion, right now, I believe the inflation is completely on the heels of the automotive industry.
Okay.
And actually, to that extent, I believe it's going to lead to the contraction of the economy. And the reason why I'm saying this is because it's going to have nothing to do with tariffs. It's going to have nothing to do with the president. It's all to do with corporate greed. So I'm going to take everyone back to about 2020, 2021-ish. When you would go to a car dealer and you'd see the MSRP and then you'd see a dealer markup. So let's say there was a $35,000 Camry. Actually, no, we're going to say there was a $25,000 Camry because that was the MSRP back then, $25,000 for Camry. The dealer would mark it up $10,000 to make it $35,000 because there was a scarcity of Camrys because of the supply chain issues and all this other stuff during COVID, right? Okay. Well, as COVID kind of dwindles down and the car companies get their supply chains back together, they say, well, wait a minute. People were willing to pay $35,000 for this Camry. The Camry still only costs, let's say it cost them
$10,000 to make.
$10,000 to make.
Yeah.
Let's say that. And they were charging the dealers probably about $18,000. And they were selling it for $25,000 originally. Well, then they marked it up to $35,000. They weren't paying more. They weren't getting charged more than the $18,000 they were before.
The manufacturers weren't getting a cut of this action.
Bingo.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though. They took note. Said, well, people are willing to pay these prices. We want a piece of that. So they raised the MSRPs by way more than inflation. So now the MSRP on a base Camry, I believe, is $31,000. But now there's more Camrys.
Right.
So people aren't panicking to buy them because they're afraid they're not going to be able to buy one and they'll be out of a car completely. The car still costs, well, rather than $10,000, maybe it costs $11,000. But they just raised the MSRP by $6,000?
It's $28,700.
$28,700, okay.
So
I mean, I don't know what the MSRP of a Camry was before.
Right. We're just throwing numbers out. But
I'm guessing it was probably closer to maybe 22, 23.
Yeah. But you'd see this with specialty vehicles, right? So like
Corvettes.
Right. Supras.
The F-150 Lightning.
Yeah. Like not the stupid E-Lightning, but like the legit SVT Lightning. So they'd come out and they'd say, oh, okay, this new vehicle came out. Certain trim packages would come out. And there'd be a dealer markup on it. And only certain dealers got it. And it was kind of known. And then the guys that had to be the first one to have that car that had, more money than brains or more credit than brains, depending on how you want to slice it, those dum-dums would then go and shell out that extra coin to have serial number 01 of the new Saline Mustang or SVT Lightning or Toyota Supra, whatever the vehicle was. And I was kind of like, just known it happened. But when they start doing it with like a Camry, a CRV, like it's,
right.
These aren't specialty vehicles. These are, like rental car fleets are made of these things.
Right. And so the reason why I'm saying that is because they could still charge the old MSRP, maybe $1,000 difference, right? So rather than the starting price of a Camry being $23,000, maybe $24,000, instead of it being $28,000. And let's face facts, they're probably not even producing the one at $28,000.
Yeah, so a base MSRP for 2019 Camry was $23,800.
Okay.
And now it's $28,700.
Right. So that's a $6,000 increase. When it probably only costed maybe $1,000 more to make it. Okay. And that's my point though. That Camry should be $24,000. That entry level Camry should be $24,000. Well, then interest rates went up. So before, interest rates were like 1%, 2%, 3%, sometimes 0%. And it kept those payments low. Now, like I think like a Ford F-150, I think the starting price was like $34,000.
Like steel wheels, two-wheel drive, standard cab, white work truck.
But you could probably get an XLT for like 36, 37, right? Then you couldn't touch an XLT for under 50, right? I mean, and this is what but when you go up to 50,000 and you add on 3, 4, 5 percentage points onto the loan, even if you push the financing out to 8 years, which good luck if the car lasts that long.
Yeah.
Because all these things have issues now.
Yeah. Yeah, MSRP on an F-150 XLT is $52,300.
52.3. And I'm pretty sure 4 years ago that was probably 36.
Yeah.
That's a $14,000 difference.
Yeah. Maybe kissing 40, depending,
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, even then, that's a $12,000 difference.
Now,
that's not inflation.
No, whatever dealer in Culpeper, Virginia, for the 25, they do have it marked at $43,900.
Right. Well, because now they have to do discounts.
Yeah.
So before, and so there was like an inflection point. So when the MSRPs went up, the dealers still try to get those dealer markups and nobody's buying them. So then they had to go to MSRP. But as more and more of these things stacked up, and nobody was buying them, because like I said, the interest rates were so high. You're talking about on a $53,000 truck at 6-7% interest. You're talking about like an $850 per month loan.
Yeah, and that's if you stretch it, because now they're offering car loans at 8 years, 10 years.
Right. Well, I think it was like 7 years.
Yeah.
It was $850.
Yeah.
It was crazy. The ones like the Grand Wagoneer at $110,000, you're talking about $15,000 a month, $1,800 a month.
Yeah.
That's rent.
That's a mortgage payment.
Yes. And so what I'm saying, like, if it was back to what it was when the average car payment was like $400 or $500.
Yeah.
Okay, now if it's $1,200, that's a $700 a month difference.
I had 2 car payments at one time.
Right.
And I'm soon to have, within the next month or so, have 0 car payments. But when I had 2, and I don't like having 2 at one time, but my old beater car died, so I had to get something. But combined, it was like $850 for 2.
Right.
And one of them was brand new, one of them was used. So,
I mean, when I had that Equinox, I bought that brand new. $28,000 out the door. It was $450 a month.
Yeah.
That is gone. You're not buying that for $28,000.
No.
You can get like a Chevy Trax, much smaller.
Yeah, you look like a girl in a roller skate with that thing.
Or the Blazer, which is small too.
Yeah, I've driven one of those. Not impressed.
I don't think I fit. So I guess my point is this: if you could bring down car payments just by bringing car prices in line with what in 4 years of inflation, rather than 4 years of greed,
yeah,
you would lower the monthly car payments. Which would then, and let's face it, people aren't going to put that money away. They're going to spend it.
Oh, yeah.
So you could keep the key to an economy is to keep money flowing. Loans don't really keep money flowing.
No, in fact, if you have a lot of debt, inflation's kind of good for you.
Well, think of it this way. So let's say I do buy a $28,000 car in a loan. Mm-hmm. It's not like I'm taking $28,000 and spreading it around.
Right.
I'm taking $28,000. I'm paying that money to a loan company, and all of that money went to one car dealership. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's not like I spread it around to 17 restaurants and all this stuff. Yeah. And so the money is
and
stagnant.
burnt gas to get there and did all. Yeah.
Right. So the money's stagnant. Mm-hmm. Which is, I mean, I've got a whole theory on why they started printing a bunch of money. And it was because personal debt was at at an almost all-time low going into 2019. Mm-hmm. Mostly because of what happened in 2007. 2007 scared the shit out of people. That was our version of the Great Recession.
Yeah, we almost,
it wasn't as bad.
Gen X and older millennials almost became like depression, like our grandparents, right, who would just save everything because they were afraid of the next.
Well, they started putting money in the stock market. Yeah. When money goes to the stock market, it's where money goes to die. Mm-hmm. Now, don't get me wrong; it's good for your retirement.
Yeah,
because it's going to grow.
Yeah,
but it's not in the economy working, mm-hmm, and that's a death knell for any economy.
Yeah,
especially a capitalistic one or whatever the fuck we are.
Corporate oligarchy.
Sure. And so, I think what they did was they printed the cash to get the money circulating again, because all of that money was tied up in the stock market. Mm-hmm. Because when you put it in your retirement plan, it goes into the stock market. And it's sitting there. It's not doing anything.
Yeah, like the money that goes for my, retirement investments, I don't touch it.
Right.
Like, I thought I needed to get a new AC system, and I was like, looking at it, I was like, oh no, I'll get a loan before I do that.
Well, and some people, like, one time, like, when we I forgot what we needed it for. We ended up taking a loan out of my retirement account, mm-hmm, at like a 2% interest rate.
Yeah.
And we paid it back and all this fun stuff. But it's not like, again, we didn't take it out to go spend it on regular stuff. Like, we had a big expense we had to cover.
Right. It wasn't like you're going to go out and buy a boat and go out to eat and take a vacation.
Right. So I think that everyone's like, oh, they printed so much money. I think there was an underlying issue there of why they did it. Mm-hmm. They needed that money to circulate. And money that was technically already printed wasn't circulating. But anyway, I think if they want to get money circulating again, I think if they can get car payments back down, and car companies are starting to do 0% financing again, they're offering those huge discounts to kind of bring cars down. And the funny part is they're not lowering the MSRP.
Right. Well, like that Ford I just told you about, we're looking at the price of Fords, of the F-150. So MSRP is 52. They are offering it for 43. It's brand new. I'm not sure what dealership it is.
What's that? Man, that's $10,000 off.
Yeah.
And that doesn't include anything the dealer might take off.
Oh, sure.
So the dealer might take another $2,000. You might be getting $12,000 off now. So now you're down to like 41, mm-hmm, which is essentially what it was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Before all this shit happened, right?
Yep.
And then if they throw in 0% financing on top of that, okay, now all of that increased payment and stuff, now you're back down to 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now you're back down to manageable.
Yeah.
The other problem, because the problem with financing these cars over 8 years, you're lucky if they last 8 years.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, what gets me about it is cars have become consumer products, and I think the EVs have made it worse. Like, you can't take your Tesla down to Cape Auto and have them work on it.
No.
You can't. I'm not sure about the other manufacturers, but Tesla's very, like, you only get it fixed by them, and I think they're designed to never quite die, but to just, like your cell phone. Like, your cell phone will always work,
right,
but, like, eventually the battery lasts for 15 minutes and it dies.
The battery degradation is big.
Yeah.
There's this guy on Instagram or TikTok or something called Benzes and Bow Ties.
I follow him, yeah.
Okay. He always tries to convince people with high dollar value cars to lease them. Mm-hmm. And his thing is this, and I don't necessarily prescribe to this, but I understand where he's coming from.
He comes across as such a douchey bro.
Yeah.
But when you listen to him, like, oh, okay, like,
we're just penny loafers.
Yeah.
Come on.
And a bow tie.
And a bow tie.
And he sells Mercedes-Benz.
Yes, he does. But the thing he says about leasing is you get protection from depreciation because you don't really know how, especially with EV, he says this with EVs, you really don't know how much they're going to depreciate. So he goes, take in the locked in depreciation. And if the car isn't worth that at the end of the lease, you just give it up and you don't have to pay anything.
Yeah.
Whereas if you pay for the car and you finance it and 3 years later you want to try and trade up, he goes, you might have 15 grand worth of negative equity and you're just rolling that into the next car, which is increasing your payment. And then you got to roll that into the next car. So if you like to have a different car every 3 years or so, or if it's an appliance and it's going to break down in 3 years, and in 3 years, that's generally when you start to need brakes, tires. That's when big maintenance items come up.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to do those, especially on a Mercedes, which costs more than a BMW, costs more, then you lease it, and in 3 years, you don't have to do any of it. You turn it back in, and you just do it again, and you might be out another, you got to put like $2,000 down. But you can do that with any car.
Oh, sure.
And you get that downside protection. Now, I'm more of a person, I buy used cars. That's what I do. But used cars are pricey right now.
Well, I think, when it comes time for us to get another car. Now, granted, the Sienna has 82,000 miles on it. So, that thing's never going to...
You want to know how to make that new again? You pay some dude $300 or $400 to come to your house, and he'll detail the shit out of the inside.
Oh, yeah.
And make it look brand new.
Yeah. It feels brand new, smells brand new.
And now, actually, Crutchfield, I just learned about this. I got the catalog from Crutchfield, and one of the things that it said in there was that they can take your in-dash system and refresh it so it has wireless CarPlay and Android Auto.
Oh, wow.
So your dash will look exactly like it does now. And they can do it for, I think it's 12 different manufacturers, like all the major ones.
Yeah.
So we were talking about my wife's Ford Edge. It's got 105,000 miles on it. It's a 2013. It's 12 years old. Nothing wrong with it. I have no reason to get rid of it. Except that the in-dash system was that antiquated Foursquare bullshit.
Yeah. That's like
you have it in your Ford. Yeah. So, and it costs about $1,000. It's not cheap. But if you have any familiarity with replacing a radio, you can essentially go back there, plug in all this shit, and your screen now will look exactly like your old one, except now it has the new interface on it.
Yeah.
It'll operate your climate control, everything. Like they've made it so it mimics all of the stuff it needs to. It just has the new interface.
I wonder. So we don't have in-dash nav on that Fusion.
I wonder if you could, because the spot is probably there. I wonder if you could pull that out and put it, because that car was made with it.
Yeah, but what it does is you can go if you go through the menus on the screen. I was playing around. I was trying to do something with it. You go through the menus and you pull up this certain menu and it gives you your GPS coordinates. So it knows where you are.
Yeah, it's got the antenna.
Yeah. So if it knows where you are, it shouldn't be that big of a deal to just.
Most times though, and I only know this from the Yukon, there was a GPS antenna that came with it that I plugged in. You just plug it in the back.
Yeah.
So I do think the screen itself gets replaced, but it's made to be look factory.
Yeah. But my thing is, even in the van that has in-dash nav, I still use Waze.
Right.
So I don't use their system anyway.
Right. I try not but here's the thing. I would not use the Ford Sync system. Last trip we took, we used my wife's phone. But if I could have it on the screen, that'd be great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it makes it so that I can keep a car that I like and just update the thing I don't like about it. And for $1,000, I get a refresh car.
Yeah.
If I want to pay $400, I'll have them detail the seats and everything and make it look brand new. And I'm done. I got my car. That engine and transmission will last me another 100,000 miles at least. So I think that's a great option for a lot of cars, especially the fact that you have that Sienna with only 83,000 miles on it, especially on that car.
Yeah.
It's the naturally aspirated V6. It's not the hybrid model.
Nope.
That V6 will run for 400,000 miles as long as you just change the fucking oil.
Yeah.
Those things are the definition of bulletproof.
Yeah.
So if you could just refresh it with a cleaning, like literally $1,400, you refresh that thing.
Yeah.
And it's like a brand new car.
Yep.
In the perfect form that you have.
It's weird because when I was younger, I was such a car guy. And I'm still into them.
Yeah.
I still appreciate cars. I like, people that tune them. I used to be more of a domestic guy, but now like import tuners, domestic, I think it's all, taking something that's not that fast and making it fast to me is pretty cool. But now like I've got a Toyota Sienna, and that's the car that I drive. I don't need a new car. I'm happy with that thing. It does the things it needs to do. I'm not too pressed about going and buying the latest, greatest. One of the things, I think it's one of those financial, I forget which one. He says, don't spend money you don't have to impress people you don't know. And that's, who does a car impress?
Well, the other part of it is the wants I had when I was in my 20s are different than the wants I have
Yeah.
now. I want something smooth, quiet, and comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, that's a minivan.
You want to kill miles.
Right.
Toyota Sienna is the way to go.
Right. I don't want... I toyed with having a car where I still shift my own gears. I did that with my little Ford Focus. I got tired of that shit.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? My hips can't take this anymore. My old hips and the arthritis don't like the constant shifting.
Yeah.
Or the,
and that'd be great if you lived in somewhere out in the middle of nowhere.
Sure.
But here, where you have to sit on 50 in traffic, and you might as well be riding a bike because you're on the clutch all the time.
And then you got to get out of the car, which is just as hard as getting into the car without smacking my head.
Right.
Like, I want something I can get into easy enough, get out of easy enough. When I sit, my ass doesn't hurt. I want something that's comfortable to be in. Now, don't get me wrong. Is the Yukon quiet? No. But my ass is comfortable.
Yeah, the ride's nice.
Yes. And so I should get a little bit more work done on it tomorrow. So I'm getting the other front bearing replaced.
Okay.
Having the front and rear diff fluid changed just to see if there's any metal flakes in it. What else? I'm doing one other thing. Front brakes and rotors. And then if that fixes the one issue I've got, then I'm pretty much done. I might do one more thing. It's always one more thing. There's something called the Big Three, which is the electrical Big Three, where you basically take 0 gauge wire and you connect it to the alternator positive to the battery positive, the alternator negative to two different to the alternator negative or ground, and then the battery negative to the firewall negative or the ground, and that is supposed to allow for better energy transfer. So, like when I had the windows and the lights would dim, I either need a higher power alternator or I got to do that wire upgrade.
Yeah.
Because I had all the ground wires checked and they're connected properly. It's just, I think it just, the wire that's probably there is old and brittle and probably isn't carrying the current like it should. So I might do that one more thing. And then I almost got a set of 20-inch wheels and tires down in Leonardtown for $800.
You should look up dealer takeoffs.
I do.
So,
but people want like $1,300.
Oh, yeah.
And the tires are shit.
Because like the dealer takeoffs, like say someone buys, because the lug nut size and pattern hasn't changed.
Right.
So like they get a 25 Suburban LTZ, but they want the high country wheels. So they'll go and take high country wheels and put them on that LTZ. And then those LTZ wheels and tires are just sitting there and the dealer will sell them for, not that much money.
I never thought to go to a dealer.
Yeah.
Just because I figured they want way too much money. I've been looking on Facebook. Someone on Facebook's trying to get rid of some shit.
Look up dealer takeoffs and see if you can find something. I steer away from like big brims and tires because the tires are more expensive.
So it is, and the one thing I still want to keep is some of the meat on the sidewall.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to go down to because 22s you got to go down to 45.
Yeah,
sidewalls. I want to go to 20s with the 55s.
Yeah,
so that gives me enough where it's still cushiony.
Mm-hmm. But like a lot of these, I remember my first car was a '93 Ford Escort. It had 13-inch rims. Okay. And you could put, you could get tires for that thing for like brand new for like $50.
Yeah.
Like it was nothing. And cars now, like even like the Fusion is not a sports sedan. Now my version is a little sportier. It's got 20-inch wheels and low profile tires, and it looks cool. Mm-hmm. I'd replace 2 tires. It cost me $800. On because I wanted to make sure they were all matching. So I got the same Goodyears that were on it. The ride's a little harsher. That's one of the things. Like everything's a sports sedan. What about just like a regular? So the Car Wizard always talks about the Buick LeSabre. Mm-hmm. Like mechanics drive those things. They're easy to work on. They last forever. Tires aren't that expensive. So that's where I'm headed. Like Buick LeSabre, old Camry, old Accord. Maybe an Avalon,
I'm looking at the LS 460.
Yeah.
Like a 2009.
Yeah.
Like it's basically an Avalon, but it's a rear wheel drive.
Yeah. And these things are like, when I look at new cars, and I don't like the screens and the tech. I like steam gauges. I like buttons to push things at night. I don't want to have to navigate a menu to change the fan speed. And maybe I sound like really old by doing this, but when you look at the way airplane cockpits are designed, mm-hmm. they could switch those whole things entirely to screens. And they have the MFDs, the multifunction displays all over the place. Mm-hmm. But the stuff that you interface with is analog buttons. And the reason they do that is so that if the cockpit's filled with smoke or it's dark or whatever, you can still do things by feel. Like when you click something over, there's a tactile feel that It's not like, oh, hey, did you pressurize the cabin? Yeah, I hit the slider thing. No, you turn the knob and you know that you did it. Yeah. Because there's a detent in all the different positions. Like it's on, it's off. You can look at it and see. You can reach up there and feel it that's in the right position. I like buttons and switches. I just
don't understand how having them all embedded in a menu is safe. So, for example, I'm going down the road. I want to turn the volume up. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't have to find it on the screen.
Right.
It's like make it the knob. Like I can reach out, I can feel it, and turn the knob. Right. Mm-hmm. Or if I need to do climate control, like I don't need to do 3 presses on a screen.
Yeah.
I should just be able to turn a knob and turn it up or turn it down.
I like the old slider.
Or that. Yeah.
That Ford kept in their cars forever. It was this. You could get a Mustang or an Econoline, and it was the same climate control system. Yeah.
And I guess all of this to say that with the headlines that are out there, because this is where we started talking about the negative headlines and whatnot. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of negative stuff to talk about with Trump. The thing is that I believe that all of these things, everything he does is, I don't know the right word for it, but basically it's shouted out in a negative way. And I don't know the right word for it. Over exaggerated in a negative way. Like everything is the worst thing. Mm-hmm. Everything is horrible. Everything sucks. It's every single thing this guy does. It's the worst thing on earth. Like, and one of the last things we can talk about. He signed an executive order to essentially say that the United States Medicare and Medicaid would pay drug companies the lowest price that the lowest country pays. Mm-hmm. Because according to him, he talked to a pharmaceutical exec and said, how come we pay so much money for these drugs? And the guy didn't have a good answer. He said the guy tried to give me all the old talking points about R&D and And Trump goes, well, how come other countries don't have to pay for R&D? Or how come other countries don't have to pay for all this development? Why are we the only ones paying this? And in some cases, it's like 10x of what other people are paying. And it's like, now, I don't know if any of this is true. Like, I don't know if his anecdotes are true. His one anecdote was that he's got a really wealthy friend who lives half the year in the UK and half the year in the US. And he said this, and he said he was using one of the fat drugs. So basically, he's like, probably on Ozempic, right? He's like, this Ozempic over here cost me $18 in the UK. And when I go home, it cost me $1,300. Yeah. Which is true. We were talking about that. Yeah. Oh, a month of Ozempic costs $1,300. Mm-hmm. And so Trump basically asked the question, why does it cost so much? And the guy didn't have any good reason. The old R&D thing didn't make sense because they could charge other countries that same R&D. Like, why are we paying so much more? And the reason why is because no one ever pushed back.
Yeah.
They talked about it. They talked about how, Medicare is going to negotiate drug prices. It didn't negotiate shit.
No, it didn't negotiate anything. And then the thing is, the whole R&D argument is a bunch of bullshit too, because like FDA and NIH and all these other people do the research. Taxpayers pay for that, and then the drug companies swoop in and take the winners.
They don't do that. They don't do the research. They rubber stamp the research they're given.
Yeah, but in the initial development of like a brand new drug for something, it's taxpayer funded, and then the drug companies, they invest in it too, but then they take the winners and make all the money off of it. None of that money comes back, and then everyone else is stuck with the bill for the losers.
Yeah, so I mean, this was touted as a negative.
Yeah, well, because
it's going to be less R&D now.
Yeah, and then in the press conference, rather than asking him questions about the executive order, they asked him questions about the jet from Qatar.
Right.
Is it true that you got it, that you received a gift from Qatar of an airplane?
And it's really funny that he's bringing this up. And I've talked about this one before. I don't know if he's on TikTok or Instagram, but it's called Forest Park Pharmacy. Mm-hmm. Where the guy basically says, look, if you come to my pharmacy and don't tell me you have insurance, you're going to pay this much for this drug.
Yeah.
If you tell me you have Medicare or Medicaid or any other insurance, you're going to pay this much for this drug. Medicare tomorrow could save $1 trillion just on one drug.
Yeah.
And so the funny part is then they submit a budget that's like cut Medicare or Medicaid, like the cost of it by like $1 trillion. Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to cut healthcare for seniors, and or you can save these, billions of dollars by not paying the exorbitant prices for these drugs.
Yeah. Well, Brigham Bueller is on his Dr. Palladino's his podcast. I was listening to that. And then, of course, you get into the PBMs, which are just disgraceful. Mm-hmm. And Brigham Bueller owned a pharmacy as well and was talking about how if you came in with insurance makes you pay X amount, and then you have to pay the copay. Well, he only paid $2. Mm-hmm. So he could have sold you that drug for $3, but you have to pay $10 on your copay,
right?
And then the insurance company takes the $7 from the pharmacy. So
and the funny with the Forest Park Pharmacy guy, he says once you tell him you have insurance, he can't give you the non-insurance price. Mm-hmm. Because if he does, they won't sell him the drug anymore.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
He can't charge you the lesser price if you just say one sentence.
Yeah. I
have insurance. So even if you go in and say, I can't afford the copay, and you're going to walk out, no transaction is going to happen. He's going to lose out on the sale. Mm-hmm. He'd rather lose out on the sale rather than lose the access to the drug that he can sell 10 times over.
Yeah.
That's a fucked up system.
Mm-hmm.
And but Trump's a bad guy for that.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things he's a bad guy for.
Sure.
But, I hate to say they're the boy who cried wolf. You can't say everything's fucking bad.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when people are looking at it and going, well, this looks pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
maybe I'll, and as far as like the tariffs go, people don't really understand tariffs. But if you told them the truth about tariffs and the examples that we gave, it's not so bad. And oh, by the way, yes, it's a revenue source for the country.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you got to pay $1 more for your Nikes if Nike's an honest partner in this.
Big if.
Right. If they're an honest partner in this.
Yeah. It was like what Amazon was doing, saying like the post-tariff cost. And like this was $14 cheaper pre-tariffs. And I'm thinking to myself, well, was it really, or was it $1.40 cheaper before the
Well, and the problem with that was you don't know if they were telling you the truth.
Yeah.
Okay, it was $14. So this product that was $25 now costs me $35.
Yeah.
You're telling me the tariff was, let's see, 10, 20, 30, 50 fucking percent? That doesn't match up.
Yeah.
So maybe you're trying to tell me that the price increase is due to tariffs when it's actually just due to the fact you want to gouge the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
Asshole. But people don't think like that.
No.
People think, well, Amazon told me it's $10 more because of tariffs. It must be true.
Mm-hmm.
No, dumbass. They're preying on you not knowing better. They're preying on you just not thinking for yourself. And
then there's also the guy that knows, that's like, fuck it, I need this thing and I don't feel like going to shop around or do this or that. I'm just going to have it sent to my door and I'll pay the extra $10.
Amazon's going to have to watch out, though. And the reason why I say that is because Walmart finally grew a fucking brain, realizing they have all of this storage capacity and these huge fucking stores across the country. They could have been Amazon before Amazon was Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
And now they're doing this Walmart Plus thing. They'll deliver your groceries. Because, by the way, the biggest grocery chain in America is Walmart. They'll deliver your groceries and a pair of shorts.
Yeah.
And they'll do it with free shipping now if you sign up for about $120 a year with Walmart Plus.
Sounds like Amazon Prime.
It does. Yes, it does. The only thing it doesn't have is Walmart Plus Video.
Right.
Wait, you don't get, or Walmart Prime. Prime Video. You're not getting that.
And Walmart sticks.
Right. Right. Which, don't be shocked if Walmart ends up buying HBO.
Yeah.
And creating Walmart Prime Video.
Walbio.
Right. Because they're already selling the TV boxes now.
Yeah.
So Amazon has the Fire Sticks. Walmart has the On TV box. Mm-hmm. And On TV stick. On being ONN dot.
Okay.
Which is the stupidest fucking thing. Just name it something people can fucking understand, please.
On.
Period.
On.
If I have to figure out how to pronounce the fucking thing, you named it.
I suppose there's some accent over there, like a long line over the. Is it un?
Get an out. Well, and the other part of this is
what's the little tilde?
Right.
Unya?
Unya. It's fucking Mexican. Unya. And if Walmart was smart, and we're just gonna make them some money real quick. Amazon's getting away from the Fire OS, which is a skin version of Android, and they're gonna go to something called Vega. From what I hear, end of 2025. It's supposed to happen end of 2024. I think so. Now all these Fire Sticks aren't going to be able to have side-loaded apps. Mm-hmm. So all the apps that these people love, can't put it on there. And a lot of the app developers may not jump onto this Vega OS thing where they create apps for it. Because if you have to create an app for Apple, an app for Google, which is Android, an app for Roku, now you got to create another one for Vega, which is Amazon. Okay, well, if people stop buying the Fire Stick, and I can put my apps onto the ONN period box that's still Android based.
Yeah.
If I'm Walmart, I'm buying HBO and Discovery tomorrow because they're both up for sale. Mm-hmm. I'm creating Walmart streaming service, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I'm forcing it onto the on boxes. And I'm going to push the shit out of those on boxes because now you're getting people to consider Walmart Plus if they get the video, especially if they get the HBO library and the Discovery library.
Yeah.
You start creating some programming. I mean, you can literally take Amazon out because it's the only company with the scale to do it. And now, the reason why Amazon sells those Fire Sticks so fucking cheap is because you get you in their ecosystem. It's the whole. It's the old Apple trick.
Yeah.
Once you buy an Apple iPad or an iPhone, well, now you're going to buy the iPad because it works with the iPhone. I'm going to buy the Apple TV box because it works with my phone and my iPad.
And I have my Apple Watch.
And I'm going to get my Mac.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy into the ecosystem.
Yeah. Like, I have all Apple stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not a fanboy. It's just what I started with.
And it's easier to keep going with it.
Yeah.
Even though it costs more.
Right. So, like, I'll have the app. And then, now they get me on, like, Apple Music. I'm paying $14.99 a month for that. And then they get me on the additional storage crap because my kids take 38 pictures of their freaking toes. And then you have no storage. So I could go through and delete the pictures, or I could just pay another $2 a month and get more storage. So I do that. And I'm sure a lot of people do the same thing. You know, so it's one of those things where, you know, my camera was running in my pocket for...
3 hours.
3 hours and now
10 gigabyte.
And I could go back and find that, or I could just pay the $2 a month.
Right.
But it gets you in. And the thing is, like, I think some of the Samsung Android phones are great. Like the ones that, and that's gimmicky, but the ones that fold open and have, you know, that's cool stuff. The cameras are better. I hear the Google Pixel's great.
I have one.
Yeah.
I have a Google 8 Pro. I got it for free.
Yeah.
For free at Verizon, right? Because my 2 years was up.
Yeah.
I mean, so my wife's an Android. My wife's an iPhone user. My kid's got an Apple iWatch. My youngest kid's probably going to have an Apple iWatch. My wife's got an iWatch.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, the kids have Android tablets. Eventually, I'm going to switch over to iPads for them.
Yeah.
I just am.
Especially when you can get a reconditioned iPad for...
And to be honest,
$200.
they last a good while.
Yeah.
I know they cost more, but they generally last longer.
Yeah.
And eventually, I'm probably going to move myself to an iPhone as well, so we're all in the same thing, right? Yeah. I used an Android mostly because I needed it for something else that Apple couldn't do. Because Android's just more customizable, and they have some apps that can't be...
Well, the iPhone is the Toyota Camry.
Right.
It's not exciting, but you know what? Or the Toyota Sienna in my case, you get in it, you push the start button, it starts. All the things work. Oh, but you can't mod it out. I'm not doing that anyway. You know, so that's what my phone's like. I'm not developing apps or going crazy with it.
I'll give a great example. My wife had an iPhone 8 with the thumbprint thing. She didn't get a new iPhone until the iPhone 12. Bless you. That was, and she had to get used to so it didn't have the circle with the fingerprint.
You just flick up.
And then she didn't get a phone. I think now her phone is an iPhone 15. So she waited another 3 model years.
Yeah.
She does not like the change. And the thing is, her phone, I would say the 8, the battery life started kind of dwindling.
That's when I get new phones.
And that's when she went for the 12. So she went 4 models from her first change. And then she went 3 models to her second change. But again, though, she only changed because Verizon gave it to us for nothing. And so, of course, at that point, it was like, okay, well, your battery's starting to be a little degraded. Yeah. And then we also wanted to take her watch and give it to the kid, which ended up being a fucking complete disaster. Like, whatever. It is what it is. So, but she's going to keep that phone. I mean, I think we got it for her last December, November, whenever. She'll keep that for 3-4 years. Yeah. And it cost us nothing.
Yeah. My phone's 2 years old. It still works fine. So I'll run it till the wheels fall off of it.
My work phone's an XR.
Yeah. I don't know what mine is.
The thing works just fine. They asked me if I wanted to swap it out. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I got asked at work too if I wanted to swap mine out, and I don't care.
I'm like, this phone works.
Yeah.
Don't touch it.
And it's funny because I don't use this phone as much. It really it does its, like, the battery lasts long. Like, this battery, I'll charge it once. I'll charge it twice a week.
No, my work phone?
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I don't use it for a ton, but because most of my stuff, emails and doing jobs on the computer.
Yeah.
I can get through 4 to 5 days on standby for the most part, without charging it. I'll charge it over the weekend. It'll be 100. Like, I think right now I'm at like 7%, but I didn't charge it last week.
Yeah.
So I'll charge it, and it'll last another 5-6 days. I mean, I'm not swapping that out just because of like an extra feature or two.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to use.
Yeah. My work phone's an iPhone 11, and I was over there a couple weeks ago, and one of the girls that works in, she ran up, she goes, "Oh, you want a new phone?" I was like, "Not really." So
it is a hassle.
Yeah.
To swap over.
There's all kinds of passwords I forgot that I have to go remember to.
You got to get on a password keeper, man.
Yeah.
I tell my wife the same thing. Like, so I use something called Proton Mail. Mm-hmm. Well, with that, you get the password keeper.
Oh, I have Proton Mail.
You get the password keeper for free. And it is amazing. And I like Proton because I know it's safe. Mm-hmm. It isn't like some of these others, and it's not going away. They're in Switzerland. All my shit's secret, or wherever. Switzerland. Yeah. And it works. Like, you go to a website, bam, your information. You go to an app, bam, puts it in. The only thing I don't like is that sometimes it won't figure out that your password, your username and password for a website is the same for the app for the same thing. Yeah. That you have to re-enter it. Or it'll say, "Hey, do you want to use your password and username from this website and this app?" Yes, I do. It's the same fucking thing. But no, I love the password keeper, because here's the thing: if I get a new phone and I switch over, all I gotta do is install the password keeper, do my login for that, and all my passwords are there. Yeah. And I don't have to figure it out. I gotta open the app, it'll fill it in. Problem is, with 30 fucking apps, you gotta do that with every single app. Yep. That's why switching phones sucks. They need to figure that shit out. Oh yeah. Now iPhones, I think, did. I don't think you have to re-log into apps. I think it carries everything over if you're going iPhone to iPhone. Yeah, I have to. Next time I get a phone, when I went, I think I do it for some of this stuff on my iPad. I think it's dependent upon the app. But yeah. So anyway, don't be so grumpy. Don't be so jumpy to say something is bad. Criticize the things that are bad, though. Don't be afraid to speak out about those things. But not everything is bad. Don't be the Debbie Downer. Because the worst part about it is, if you're the Debbie Downer in the first 2 to 3 months about everything, and 9 months to 18 months from now, it worked out, your credibility's gone. Well, they don't care about the credibility. They proved that during COVID. Right. So. Or they'll make an excuse about it, right? Yeah. But you're going to lose people that believe you. Yeah. If you're one of these journalists, influencers, whatever you are, just be careful with your own reputation, because you could be wrong. Mm-hmm. And I will say this about the left, and to the right to an extent, they love to jump to a conclusion right away. Mm-hmm. Like, they're going to predict the future. And if all these motherfuckers could predict the future, they'd be a lot richer than they are and stop begging for your money on Twitter and Instagram. Like we are. Yeah. But we appreciate you listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. Want to thank Adam Chubbuck with TACMD.com. Head over to Adam's website and schedule an appointment if you were in the real estate market. And we will see you next week.